Hello and welcome to today's CDCT live session. My name's Jason Rader and I'll be your host for the next few minutes as we talk about today's topic, which is modern IT operations. Our guest today is Sean O'Grady, who's the SVP and General Manager of CDCT with me. Welcome today, Sean.
Great to talk to you, Jason.
Glad to have you. So from a mod ops, and I'll be saying mod ops instead of modern IT operations while we're talking about this, from a mod ops perspective, kind of set the context here. What are we kind of talking about when we're saying mod ops?
Well, it's kind of what it says, right? Modern operations. So what do we mean? Everyone knows what operations is, but what exactly does modern mean? And for us at Insight, modern is, I think about it two ways. One is how does IT operations, and I'll extend that to the infrastructure teams within IT, so traditional IT, how exactly should they be fitting into this DevOps process? So one element of what makes it modern is the trend towards DevOps. And then the other way that we think about it is in this environment of hybrid and multi-cloud, because the concept of what it means to have IT operations in a cloud environment can be thought of differently in a cloud environment versus a historical all private infrastructure environment. So that's what makes it modern, the tie-in with DevOps and then the tie-in with cloud.
Got it. And thanks for setting that stage. And as you mentioned, from an Insight perspective in your role, we get to see a lot of folks who are, transformations in our name, right? And it's one of those things where you get to talk to a lot of folks, I get to talk to a lot of folks related to where they are in this journey and, kind of figuring these things out. And, it's a unique perspective that we get. And I think this is a great conversation for us to have.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And we do talk to a lot of clients. We have formed an opinion of what the problems are out there. And we've also formed an opinion on, how you would go about solving those problems based on what we see from the work that we do with our client base.
Awesome. So from that perspective, I think, when you're out talking to clients related to, these types of topics, is it something that they kind of engage you on? They're probably not saying, hey, Sean, talk to me about mod ops. I think it's probably more, it evolves into that conversation as they're talking about those business outcomes that they're trying to drive to, and we're helping them kind of figure this part out.
The clients I talk to, and just understand that, who we talk to are on the sort of traditional IT ops infrastructure, CIO type of organization. I hear one of two things. One is we need to make sure that we are serving up services to our development community so that the development community doesn't bypass us to go somewhere else to get the work done. Or the other thing I hear is they're already bypassing us and they've created a problem for the company, and we now need to figure out how we go and remediate that problem that's been created. So those are probably the two things, the way that this gets articulated to us with the people that we talk to.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things where I want to kind of extrapolate, right? So for the, there's lots of different types that listen to these conversations that we have here. So from the business leader perspective, from the tech perspective, how does, if I'm thinking as a business owner, how do my developers go around my infrastructure people? How does that happen?
Look, this is as old as, dirt. This concept of, high governance typically means low innovation, and high innovation may mean low governance. Not to be political, but you could think about COVID. The best way to kill COVID is nobody ever goes outside until it's just gone. But we know that's high governance, but that's not a real practical solution either. So I think what we absolutely consult our companies our customers to do is they have to find the right balance between kind of unfettered innovation, which is required in the marketplace today, with governance that provides the cost control, really importantly, the security control, the data control, the types of things that go wrong when governance isn't applied. And, Jason, this, but there's a statistic from a Gartner survey that 80% of the CIOs agree that this is one of the biggest problems they struggle with. How do I balance the need to have governance and operational excellence with the need to drive innovation? The fact is, you got to do both. You can't. It can't be so highly governed that you don't innovate, right? Because then you're dead in the marketplace. But there's also such a thing as being so speedy to innovate that you don't punch all the right things on the ticket, and you find yourself in a bad situation. It may not be for a year or two, but you find yourself in a bad situation and you say, God, I wish we had done it differently.
Yeah, I think, as of late, speaking of COVID, people who rapidly, pushed out remote workers, and, anytime that you rapidly try to either seize an opportunity or anything, it kind of puts you at that you didn't maybe plan as much because you were trying to gain an advantage by doing that. And I think a lot of people, I think that was kind of your counterpoint, is not only are they going out there or bypassing us, that they've already done it. And now we've got to kind of reel this, the entire process back in order to, and you talked about security, which I love, thank you. But it's one of those things as well. It's not just security. There's a cost factor there. There's a lot of synergies that are lost when you've got two sides of the organization.
Totally.
Right?
It's security, it's cost management, it's vendor management, it's data protection, it's disaster recovery and business continuity. It's all of the things that IT gets paid to worry about, yep. Right? It's all the things IT gets paid to worry about. And you know what, look, I talk to a lot of customers, and in some companies that we talk to, DevOps means that there's a really tight alignment between dev and ops. And I think that's what everybody wants when they say DevOps. Sure. But that's not always what it means. Sometimes it means that the dev people just worry about the ops. And they worry about the ops because they're working with really, it's big in the public cloud space. Like, this never was a problem before the cloud came along, because you could never stand up an enterprise workload without IT infrastructure and IT ops being involved. The public cloud is great, but one of the potential problems is that companies do stand up enterprise workloads in the public cloud and bypassing sort of the traditional IT that helps make sure that all the dots are connected in the right way. So, what we really talk to our customers about, and again, it's important for the development community to be aware of this, but that's not who we primarily help, right? We have another group here at Insight called our Digital Innovation Group that works primarily with the development community. What we primarily help our customers do is we're primarily helping the ops people and the infrastructure people serve up the right balance for the dev community, so that the dev community is able to do what they need to do, but at the same time do the types of things that IT is chartered to protect. So, and obviously we can get into a whole conversation about what's required to do that, but really you've got to give the developer that experience they need. Why did they bypass them in the first place? Because they don't like them personally? No, it's because they're not giving them what they need. So they're forced to bypass them and put the company potentially at risk down the road. So, what we really focus on is how do we help the traditional IT team serve up the services to the dev team so that this works the way it's supposed to.
Yeah. No, well said. I think, the public cloud, to your point, has really been an enabler for a lot of good things. It's also been an enabler for some things that have caused a little bit of
some of it's
adjustment, right?
Some of it's just bad assumption, right? I mean, we have a lot of developers here at Insight. We have over 1,500. So I we know how they think, and there are things they worry about, and there are things they don't want to have to worry about. And that's probably what makes them great developers, is they're very, very focused on the things that matter. But those other things matter too. And there is a built-in assumption sometimes that when you build something in the public cloud, that it's the public cloud provider's responsibility to do certain things that they have flat out said that's not our responsibility, right? Yep. But of course, the case in point, I mean, I was just reading about it again a couple days ago. I won't name the name of the company, but students in the industry will know who I mean. A major data breach at a huge financial institution. The application was running in Amazon, and it was running in an ECS environment, and everything was secure, right? ECS was good to go, the firewalls were good to go, but the application firewall was not configured properly. And Jason, you could hack that in your sleep, right? I mean, it wasn't very hard for somebody to come in over the top over this misconfigured web application firewall, literally sucked out all the credit card data, 100 million credit card customers. And it cost that company untold $80 million was just the fine, doesn't even include the settlements that had to take place. So nobody knows exactly what happened there, but I think it's a pretty safe bet that if that application had been launched in the way that applications normally get launched, which is that you've got an infrastructure team, a security team, an ops team, really making sure that all the, everything's been done properly, my guess is that wouldn't have happened. So that's just a case in point of what can go badly wrong when a dev team, in the interest of spinning something up fast, because you got to do it, right? I mean, in today's environment, you got to spin it up fast. But in the interest of spinning up fast, it's possible. And again, I don't know, so I'm not saying I know, but it's not hard to determine that shortcuts get taken, and not on purpose. It's just not their area of expertise to make sure that the WAF was configured properly. Whereas in a traditional IT department, there are people that's all they worry about, right?
And the day-to-day maintenance of that. And I think that's where a lot of people got is, public cloud providers advertise themselves as being secure and being compliant and having governance and those kinds of things.
And by the way, they are. Those are all true statements.
Correct. But I think those things, when we're talking about our company or the client's company, there are governance and security and operations aspects that are above and beyond what the public cloud provides, because they provide for their infrastructure and the environment that you are running on top of. And naturally, they tout those things. I think when that is bypassed, when our company's operations is bypassed, and then we go to the cloud, and this is to your point related to this particular event that you're talking about, thinking that, it's all covered because it's running in a certain cloud without the day-to-day operations, because the WAF wasn't the public cloud provider's responsibility. And because that wasn't considered in the overall day-to-day operations, is potentially how all of this stuff went down.
Well, that's right, Jason. And look, I just want to be clear. And by the way, it's not just things like security. It's said before, it's data protection, it's business continuity and recovery, right? We're working with a client right now that has a bunch of work that they put in the cloud. And obviously they thought, well, data protection's handled by the cloud, and it's not. And we found that they had mission critical workloads where the data protection scheme had not been set up in a way that actually gave the company the RPO requirement that was essential to them. And thank God they haven't had to rely on it, because otherwise that would have been probably a newsworthy event, that we avoided. But look, I want to be really clear. It is not our position that you don't go fast. You got to go fast.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's not our position that the public cloud is bad because they don't do everything for you. That's not our position at all.
Not at all.
Our position is that, and the position that we take with our clients is, you need to find a way. It's not a mystery, right? I mean, there's a very specific set of steps you can take, but that you take these steps so that you're able to serve the development community what they want in terms of speed and responsiveness and flexibility and all of those types of things. At the same time, you're doing it in a framework of governance that meets the requirements of the company. So that's what this is all about. It's not about, it would be super easy if you just said, well, we're going to solve this problem by clamping down. You just can't do that anymore. Well, that's great. And then, your stock is hammered a year from now because you haven't kept up with your competitors. So, we're very much about, look, you can have your cake and eat it too on the subject. And that's what ModOps is all about. How do you do that? How do you make sure that you're moving fast on the innovation side, but you're doing it in a framework of governance?
Love it. So to that point, we talk a lot about technology, right? But I think, there's the aspects, the cultural change that has to take place. This isn't a technology, buy some additional tech and this is fixed. This has got to be, a lot of organizations out of necessity or however they were operated kind of got siloed, where infrastructure and dev sat on opposite sides of the business, had different goals, had different budgets, maybe never sat in a room together from a planning perspective. That's got to change.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, and when you think about, if you go back to the, what the founding principle of DevOps was, culture was one of them. And I don't remember if they called it culture or something else, but
It's culture. Yeah.
it was basically, yeah, it was culture. Yeah. And here at Insight, we have a consulting practice that actually helps our customers deal with that, and we actually have an organizational change management practice that helps customers deal with that. But culture is part of it. But look, in this, what we're talking about today, it is technology. People, process, tools, right? If the culture is people and process, what we are specifically talking about is technology. So we are specifically talking about things like automation. We're specifically talking about things like monitoring. We're talking about specific technology that does enable this have your cake and eat it too kind of a concept.
Yeah, and I love that. So I think from understanding who your internal clients are and adjusting, I think we talked about how, from if the dev side of the house is going around you, it was either that speed, it was either the ability to execute. It was maybe a cost factor, but probably not. Those are the type.
It's the first two. From what we see, it's usually the first two. And by the way, they're real issues, right?
Yeah.
I mean, IT ops can't get mad at the developers if the developers aren't getting what they need from IT ops, right?
That's right.
I mean, you can't blame the dogs for not eating the dog food. You got to give them what they need. That's a requirement.
So what's your advice to those guys, who are our clients typically, the folks that are sitting in that role so maybe the second kind of scenario that you kind of talked about where, okay, now folks they've gone around us. How do we reel this back in?
The first thing you got to do is get sponsorship.
Yeah.
This is an age-old thing for a CIO. Anytime a new technology comes out that helps a business go faster, this concept of shadow IT creeps up. Business can do what they need to do to run the business. But my experience over too many years in this industry is that eventually that comes under the governance of the CIO because somebody just says, this is too important. We're either spending too much money or we've exposed ourselves to too many risks or whatever the case may be. But there has to be sponsorship that comes and says, look, we're probably not paying as much attention to this as we need to, and we need to start paying more attention to it. So it can't just be a free for all. We've got to put some level of governance on the top. The next thing that needs to happen is that the IT ops and the infrastructure people need to recognize that in this context, the developers are their customers, and they need to provide their customers with the experience that they need in order to be successful. So it's no more, this is our Model T. It comes in whatever color you want as long as it's black. It now becomes around, you've got to facilitate that cloud experience that the developer requires because they need to move fast and the company needs them to move fast. So it's really start with getting sponsored. And I don't mean by sponsorship, it needs to come from the CEO, but I'm saying people need to agree, look, we just can't put ourselves at this kind of risk. And so, we have to find the right balance.
I think balance is important because it doesn't mean that cloud isn't going to be consumed. It just means that there's going to be a plan related to that and how potentially it's automated through the infrastructure side of the business.
Well, automation is probably the most important topic here. Yeah. It's not all automation. It is measurement. It's monitoring. It's several. And the great thing is that for all the innovation that's taking place in public cloud, there's probably an equal amount of innovation that's taking place to help IT organizations do these things. And people know who the automation firms are, and people know who the monitoring firms are. But in a lot of cases, these are firms that didn't even exist 3 or 4 years ago that are doing really, really great stuff. And so the tools are there to do it. Where people just need to know how they're going to leverage these tools so that they can provide that developer experience that's required. So that again, you can satisfy their requirement at the same time you're satisfying the company's requirement of governance.
Yeah, I love that. So just from where my heart sits, right, there's also another element to this that could come into play that's potentially another player within the organization, and that's the InfoSec side, right? Where that's included on one side or the other is another important aspect. Again, where those sides need to come together. There's brilliant technology aspects. There's obviously automation aspects to that. There's the overall governance aspects that need to come into play. And again, this makes everything, once it's planned, the folks inside your organization are going to know your business, know the players, know the product that needs to be delivered way better than, services that you're engaging from a cloud perspective, if you're just going directly there. So leveraging that synergy of a bunch of folks that are like-minded, that know their particular area, that want to accomplish that mission, but to get it done. And again, everybody's got to come to the table with some level of compromise, and then to be able to forward that message. But that, the security can also be the Department of No, which we're trying to, obviously streamline as well with the whole.
Yeah, no, you see this balance in your world, which, is security, but you see this for sure. Again, the highest governance solution is not the highest innovation solution. Right? The highest governance solution is no, shut down, can't do that.
Unplug.
But then the business doesn't operate, right? So it is the balance. And Jason, I think this is a big deal. I think that there are a couple problems that we see when the dev community stands up workloads and has bypassed the traditional IT group. The big one is security. The other one we see duplication of tool set.
Sure.
Right? How do you monitor? What's your CI/CD pipeline? What does that look like? Is it one or is it different? Everybody kind of done their own thing. So it's it's tool consolidation. It's vendor management, right? Are you aware of how much you're actually spending with this cloud provider, and therefore you're negotiating the right way, and are you evaluating whether or not you are putting yourself into an issue of vendor lock-in, where you don't really want to have you want to have your strategic partners, but you don't want to have lock-in. All things that IT thinks about, and right. So these are the problems that we see when, in the interest of speed, people bypass kind of their traditional process that has really served us well for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. No, I wanted to hop on what you were just saying. I think, one of the things from an operations perspective is after that initial app is built or whatever, workload that we're putting out there is done, there's the operations of that. And to your point, additional tool sets are paying for this, the way that it's managed and optimized as far as the maturity model goes is something that is not necessarily the consideration of somebody who's just writing the code on the front end of this thing, right? How all of it works together, right?
Let's be clear. They have an important job, and their job is to keep the company competitive.
Yep.
And that's really important. And it's easy to say that's what matters. That's the only thing that matters. And what we're telling our customers, and they've already reached this conclusion, we're creating a problem. We're creating either a security exposure, we're accumulating technical debt, we're doing something that's not right. So we need to find a way to rein this back in. So again, not to keep harping on a theme, but you got to do both.
Yeah, I love it. And I love the fact that it's not like we're waiting for some magical solution to come up. The solution exists. It's not a quick solution, right?
Totally. Look,
but the solution exists.
Oh, totally. And it will continue to evolve just like everything else. But this is a highly fixable problem. Highly fixable. I mean, it's very, very, I won't say super easy, but it's reasonably straightforward for an IT ops group or an infrastructure group to lay out a plan for the developers that causes the developers to say, yeah, that works for me. And I understand that it also satisfies your requirements, so I have no objections. Let's do it. So that's where we focus on getting our clients to.
Fantastic. Actually, any final words, because I think that's a great place to kind of end the conversation. Advice for leaders, anything out there?
No, I think that, the only advice is to recognize if this is a problem in your company. I don't think it's a problem in every company.
Right.
As I said, there are plenty of companies we talk to where this is not a problem, but the majority of people we talk to, this is a problem. So I think it starts with just trying to diagnose: is this an issue you have to fix, or not? And if it's an issue you have to fix, again, start with the sponsorship, get people to understand and agree that this is something we need to address, and then focus on putting the technology in place that helps you address it.
Awesome. Sean O'Grady, thank you so much for your time today. If you folks out there enjoyed, please comment, let us know some additional topics that we could put in for you. And if you'd like to see more about what we do here, please visit us at insightcdct.com. Thanks and have a great day. Thanks, Sean.
Bye, Jason.